The next sheet, page 4 of your project planning worksheets in their original form, is the audience analysis sheet. This sheet is a way to help you identify and clearly define the 3 audience groups you have created and are required in your report scenario, but also to begin to consider how you might construct your report to address all of their different learning and reading needs and styles simultaneously in the same analytical report. The first thing we want to make sure of in this sheet is that all 3 audience groups are audiences who would actually read the report document. Workers at a steel mill, for example, might be impacted by the choice of new machinery in their plant, but they would not likely ever read any reports or documentation analyzing the machinery choice or recommending one machine over another. Their foreman, however, might read an actual report, as would the CEO of the company and the heads of maintenance, accounting, HR, or safety, and so on. Remember, if your scenario does not include 3 such audience groups, it probably means that you have created a very small professional entity, and you will most likely need to change the scenario to incorporate more audience groups, and to do so you will need to increase the size of the company. If you scroll down this page, you will see the 3 audience groups listed as primary, secondary, and tertiary. Most people like to place a hierarchical structure upon their perception of the audience groups they must address in a document in order to help them prioritize which audiences' demands should be considered more important to address and satisfy. That is a fairly sound strategy as long as you recognize that sometimes the audiences with the most say in a decision are not necessarily those at the top of a corporate hierarchy. An IT head, for instance, might have more of a voice in our scenario's choice of office printers than, say, the company CEO or even the office manager. For our purposes, it is more important to identify and address the needs of each of the multiple audiences of your documents than to label them as primary, secondary, or tertiary. But sometimes it is advisable to recognize the need to prioritize which audience group to place the most value upon satisfying. Once you have the 3 audience groups identified for the project, the next step in this section will be to begin developing profiles of each group, and in particular, begin to build a picture of what you will need to teach each group about the subject matter, how they will each go about reading the document, their motivations, attitudes, and expectations, and with all of that, how you might go about constructing your report to meet all of their learning needs and reading styles. To begin with, 3 of the 5 audience analysis categories are ones to describe each audience group's perspectives of the subject matter of the report and their relationship to the situation that has created the need for a choice to be made. Those categories are fairly self-explanatory, and their relevance to writing the report is also reasonably apparent. The categories I'm referring to are as follows. The first one is point of view. The second one is attitude and motivation. And the third one is expectations and assumptions. Perhaps the most important guidance to offer about providing information about your audience groups in these 3 categories is to try to make sure what you describe is the audience group's perception or perspective of the situation at hand. The final 2 categories of the audience analysis worksheet are the most significant ones to the way you will need to construct your analytical report to address the needs of all 3 of your audience groups. The first one, level of knowledge and experience, is a category where you should catalog, document, and or record what level of knowledge and or experience each audience group has in regard to the specific information, data, and content you will need to discuss in the report. This is the information you can use to help determine what you will need to teach each of your audience groups. The final category here, learning needs and reading style, is the place where you can record how each audience group is likely to actually read the document. For example, will they read the entire thing? Will they read just the sections they are interested in? Just the executive summary? Etc., etc., etc. It is also the place where you can record the way you think each audience group will be best taught the information you need to teach them, although you might not be able to place that in your sheets until you have the rest of the categories completed.